So welcome to CBC News International, where we are doing a live stream and taking your questions live about some pretty amazing astronomical discoveries. I'm Nicole Mortillaro. I'm the senior writer for Science and Technology. And of course, we have a big one today, which is liquid water being detected below the surface of the polar ice cap on Mars. Now, this is a big, big deal because we have not yet found liquid water beneath the surface or anywhere on Mars. I mean, there's been some debate. But this has amazing potential for the possibility of life. So basically, these Italian scientists used a radar on the probe Mars Express, and they found a bright reflection on below the surface of the ice cap. And they tried to figure out what this could be, what could cause it. And it ends up that the only plausible thing, the only explanation that fits with their observations is water, and liquid water at that. So this is a pretty big deal because where there's water, there is life. And this has a huge potential for the possibility of life on another planet. So that's the big one today, that is the buzz. But I'm going to talk about other things as well. Anything you feel free, please send in your questions, and I will do my best to answer them. So we have Austin Maloney, who asks, will the water be potable, or who owns it? So the water would be, it's liquid water, it's a brine, it's salty water. So that is one of the big things about the possibility of life, because here on Earth, when we find that, we find life. So for example, we have a lot of subglacial, so under ice lakes, and the biggest one is Lake Vostok in Antarctica. And they have found organisms there, microorganisms, organisms that have been living. And this is actually the big thing for space science and astrobiology, and if you can imagine, we actually have astrobiologists out there, so studying life on other planets, is that this is a brand new, relatively new science, because what we're finding out, what we found out in recent years, being the last 20, 30 years, even less than that, was we're finding organisms that can live in extreme conditions, conditions we never thought were possible. So going back to the question, it's the water is briny, it's salty, so I'm not sure if it would be quite potable. We still have to go there and find it and discover it for ourselves, if that's all possible, at least probably not likely in the near future. As for who owns it, there is a space law, believe it or not, and which says no country can actually claim ownership of anything in space. So as to who owns it, you own it, I own it, everybody owns it. So that's pretty amazing. So Andrea Stu asks, how complicated would it be for scientists to get a sample of this water to test? Okay, so that's perfect, in line with that question. Talking to the scientists, it's really hard because, first of all, it's in the South Pole and it's beneath the polar ice cap. And so you'd have to dig down about 1 kilometer, a kilometer and a half down. And it's not exactly in a great area, but it's possible. I mean, and we've been talking about going to other moons, like other worlds. So in this case, the moon Europa, it's a moon of Jupiter, and Enceladus, a moon of Saturn, both of which are similar, not identical, but similar in that they have an icy crust, and below that icy crust is water, salty water, and hydrothermal vents. And hydrothermal vents are important because here on Earth, again, it provides heat, and we find organisms and life around those vents and that water. But so we've been talking about going to missions there, but I was talking to some of the scientists who made the discovery, the Italian scientists, and they said that, yeah, it would be great to go there. And that's really how we're going to get the real confirmation as to what it consists of, or if there is life there. But so instead of going to Europa, perhaps we will turn to Mars, which is a lot easier to get to, and perhaps we don't have to dig as far down as well. Trotting Fox asks, if indeed there is liquid water, could that liquid water be converted to liquid hydrogen or liquid oxygen for future planet hopping? So, when you make fuel for rockets, you split. You use water, and you can actually split it, and it becomes molecules, and you can use that for fuel. And that is a possibility. We talk about that with asteroids. We talk about that, and if you watch science fiction shows, that happens as well. And it is something that is possible. Of course, we don't know for certain. I mean, if it is liquid water, yes, that would be a possibility, which would be amazing. But it's interesting because we talked about also if there's ice or water elsewhere, like even on the moon, for example, which would be amazing, we would be able to do that exact thing, which is to use that water as fuel. So once again, I want to welcome new viewers to CBC News and the national live stream, where we're taking your questions on new astronomical discoveries, the big one being Mars, liquid water on Mars today. And I'm Nicole Mortillaro, a senior science and technology writer. Chelsea Atkin, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, asks, do you think that Mars is starting out as a planet, almost like we are witnessing the start of life on that planet? Or do you think we are seeing the end of a planet replenishing itself? Well, here's the thing. We believe about 4.3 billion years ago, Mars was very much like Earth. It was a watery planet. And it had an ocean, and it was habitable. It was potentially habitable. The ocean wasn't very deep. It was only about 137 meters deep, and it was most of the northern hemisphere. But so we already believe that it possessed that. Now, it lost its magnetic field, which made it lose its atmosphere, which in turn made it lose the water. So we're looking at the planet at the end of its habitability, perhaps, and which is unfortunate, but you know what, we don't know. Maybe, we look for life, and we look for life as we know it, but there may be life as we don't know it, as I was saying earlier, which the examples here on Earth are extremophiles, and we didn't know that these organisms could survive in places with little to no oxygen, no water. But we're learning that this could be so, perhaps even on Mars. So Bernard Leckler asks, do we have any indication as to how large this body of water might be? Yes, 20 kilometers wide. And they said that there was a very clear signal, and I'll show you on my screen here what that looked like exactly. So we have it here. So this right here is the surface of Mars, of the ice, of the southern polar ice cap. And this signal here is very distinct, as they explain. And as you can see, it's quite bright. And it cuts off at like it's 20, roughly, of course, but 20 kilometers wide. So it's significant. It is pretty significant. So John Stufko asks, if there is water on Mars and it's in the state it is now, could Earth go the same way as Mars is now? Well, of course, we want to take care of our planet, but we have a strong magnetic field that won't, so far, that isn't looking like it's going to be stripped at all. And we're healthy with our water, so long as we take care of our planet, of course. We should be in a good state. So Jason Simpson asks, how much water was there on Mars? So as I was saying earlier, that it was a 137-meter deep ocean that covered most of the northern hemisphere. I don't know exactly how much that would translate into, but it was a lot. It was significant. And that's the thing. This discovery today is important because it's liquid water. We know that water is on the planet. We know Mars has water. It is in the ice at the polar ice caps. I should also include has carbon dioxide ice. So think of it as dry. Well, it is dry ice and water ice. So there's a difference. But it's trapped in the rocks. It's in the dirt beneath our feet, or our feet. It's hopeful, wishful thinking, I guess, but on the surface, and it is below the surface of the planet. So this is why this is important, is because it's liquid. I should include too that there was in 2015. NASA released some findings suggesting that there was flowing water on the surface of Mars. Now that would be absolutely incredible. And it's called recurring slope lineae. And let's see if I can call it up here. And so in this crater, you can see these lines here, and this would change, and it looked like flowing water. But since then, and last year, there's some debate. There is some debate about whether or not that is sand we're looking at or water that's going on, and that's also with this discovery, with the this signal here too, this new discovery. There's cautious optimism because we only have one set of data. Well, it's 29 orbits. Mars Express went around, but it's only using radar. So people are like, okay, is this really happening, or are we seeing something else at work? And time will tell. I mean, that's science, right? YouTube viewer asks, have you guys found any plant life on Mars? I wish. Wouldn't that be great? No, not yet. And it's important to note that the spacecraft that we have there, Opportunity, and which hopefully is still doing well because there's a massive dust storm that looks like it's baiting somewhat on the planet, but Curiosity as well. None of the instruments are looking for life right now. They're not equipped to find life right now. They're looking at a past Mars. So it's unlikely that we'd find any plant life, because anything on the surface, because that magnetic field is gone, would be irradiated. And that's also with the life that we think is a possibility of existing in that brine, that salty water beneath the polar ice cap. No life could live on the planet, at least life as we know it, because there's so much solar radiation. It's just the same as us. If we go into space, we face this radiation, and it is dangerous. Colleen Richard asks, fresh or salt water? We don't know until we go there. Well, sorry, it is salty, but we won't know what else is in there when it comes to, there are minerals, for example, what's in there, but it is salty water. And so Colleen Richards asks, how long until we can move? It would be amazing if we could go there, if we can have humans there soon. I mean, we have talk about, NASA sending the Orion spacecraft there within the 2030s, and SpaceX is talking about that as well, and then you have Mars One. But someone I know says we've always been 30 years away from going to Mars. So we'll see. Again, thank you to the CBC News viewers and the National. We are here live taking your questions, and I'm Nicole Mortillaro, the science and technology writer for CBC News. And so Gary Rush asks, how soon could NASA use these resources for a future trip to the moon as a launch point for deeper missions? Well, here's the thing. So the moon is closer, so it's better to do that. And great news is it's a little quiet right now, but we have the Gateway, Deep Space Gateway, I can't the name, but anyway, that is being undertaken by I believe it's the Japanese Space Agency, NASA, and the Canadian Space Agency, EAS, and we are going to put a space station. The plan is to put a space station at a particular, it's called a Lagrange point, around the moon, like close to the moon, and that would be used as a gateway. Now, the space station would not look like the International Space Station. It wouldn't be huge. It would be very small, but it would be used. The idea is to go to the moon and to go to future, maybe to asteroid missions, et cetera. So this is, that would be far easier than going to Mars, which can take 6 months to 9 months. So it's a big, it's a big mission, whereas the moon, you can get there a lot quicker. Ed McGillithan, sorry if I mispronounced your name, asks, how can you determine that it is in fact water and not some other liquid substance? I asked the scientists that as well, the researchers, and they said they couldn't even come up with anything that would be, that would be another liquid. Could it be another source? Yes, they said that is a possibility as well. But they ruled everything out. They tried to come up with other explanations for this. And I also spoke to another planetary radar scientist who said there is a lot of confidence in their findings that this is indeed liquid water. How do we have here? Rich asks, any ideas if this water is stagnant or flowing? If flowing, is it going into a larger channel? We don't detect that yet. The scientists haven't detected that. So right now it's like a lake. But they also talked about it being an aquifer in the rocks itself, which is a great, it's still an important thing. It's still an incredible finding to find just liquid water. So John Deere asks, I assume the acidity would be totally different within Mars water. Mars is the red planet, right? So I'm guessing it's more phosphorus. I can't comment on that. There is obviously high iron in the makeup of Mars. That is why it is red. And so again, we won't know. And that's the big push to get maybe humans there, or perhaps even a robotic explorer to dig deep. But you would have to dig about 1 kilometer. So, but Canadians are really good at mining and digging. So who knows? Can it sustain, Bill Howes asks, can it sustain life or is it contaminated? You know, again, it goes back to that, what is life? Life as we know it, it's possible. And there could be life as we don't know it. As I mentioned, the extremophiles are just, are surprising us constantly. So Studio NYCS, how did the magnetic field leave Mars? That is something planetary scientists are trying to better understand. We don't quite know why. There have been some hints as to why, but soon as it was stripped away, it could be a massive solar flare or coronal mass ejection. These particles travel along the wind of the solar wind, but they don't know why. And it's not like we're in danger of losing our magnetic field or anything, so you don't have to worry about that. John Deere asks, how long does it take to get to Mars? About 6 to 9 months. But if it were for us to go to Mars, it's a little tricky because we have a lot of, we're very fragile. So again, going back to the radiation for us, as we know, is bad, and there is a lot of radiation in space. The astronauts aboard the ISS are protected by the magnetic field still. And as for the Apollo astronauts, they were exposed, but I was looking this up, but the trajectory that they went kept them in the magnetic field or in the Van Allen belt as long as possible to protect them. But a 6 months or 9 month mission only one way, if you think about that. So we're looking at 2 years back and forth. That's a high dose of radiation. And the Curiosity spacecraft measured this on the way, and they found, I can't remember how high the dose was compared to what we should be used to, but scientists are continually coming up with new ideas on how to protect us. Water, for example, is a big one, and it shields us from those cosmic rays and from the radiation, so that might be an option to get us to Mars safely. Chris De Jesus asks, is it possible to find DNA in water? Not right, or like on the Martian water that we believe is there, not right now, unfortunately. Like I said, there's nothing there right now that can actually do a detailed analysis of that water. Michael McDonald says, I've always been more interested in Europa and Enceladus, though. We know they have entire oceans under their icy surfaces. I'm a Europa person myself. I think it's amazing. So Jupiter's moon, Europa, again, I mentioned earlier, and Saturn's moon, Enceladus, both moons, okay, of their respective planets, and they have an icy crust. But beneath that icy crust, they believe there's an ocean, not only an ocean of liquid water, but also hydrothermal vents, which release heat, which here on Earth we find life around. Both planets, both moons, particularly Enceladus, Saturn's moon, are spewing water vapor into space and even organics. Now, you have to watch when you hear organics found wherever. Don't get too excited. These are the building blocks of life. This does not mean that they are, this is evidence of life itself. But that's a really good sign. So Europa Enceladus, they're fantastic chances to find life in our solar system. But now, maybe we have Mars. Maybe we send probes to Mars, which obviously the Jupiter and Saturn, people will not be happy to hear. Sheila Letwiniak asks, will we see Mars in the night sky on July 27th? You can see Mars right now, so long as it's not cloudy. Unfortunately, it's cloudy here in Toronto. But yes, so I'll show you here. I have, this is a astronomy program called Stellarium. You can, I'm sure many people have their apps on their phones where they can look at the night sky, you put it up and see. So here we have Toronto, just because that's where I am right now and that's what mine is set at midnight, around midnight on the 27th, or actually, well, now we're on the 28th. But on that night, you will see the moon and Mars in conjunction, which means less than 10 degrees apart. So the great thing, actually, unfortunately for us, that night is also a total solar eclipse, a total lunar eclipse. But that's in Asia and Africa. We won't see it, but there are ways to see it live. You can go to the Virtual Telescope or SLU, look them up online, and you will be able to see it live. They'll have live coverage. But right now, Mars is visible. You just have to look in the eastern, it comes up in the southeast. So I'll show you here. You can change your time. So let's say 11 o'clock. So Mars is rises in the southeast. Today, for example, we can just go back 2 days. So you'll see it rise, and it's really bright. You cannot miss it. It is fantastic. When I first saw it, how bright it was, I just kind of lost it. It was amazing. So, and also right now, Mars is going through a dust storm. It's coming out of this dust storm. But so there was a debate as to whether or not it would make it look dim or bright. So on July 31st, so the big important thing is with Mars is that it is nearing opposition. So that's when Earth lies directly between it and the sun. But on and that occurs July 27th. On July 31st, it will be the closest to Earth that it's been since 2003. And that makes it bright, really, really bright. It will be about 57 million kilometers away as opposed to in 2003, 55 million. And which is pretty amazing. So if you go to your local observatories, astronomical associations, I'm sure they're set to have viewing parties. I know in Toronto this is going on, so I'm sure anywhere else. Definitely go and check it out, and if it's a clear night, fingers crossed. It's amazing. Hopefully you'll be able to see some features on Mars, hopefully with the dust storm subsiding a little bit. It'd be great. So, Fat Wong asks, is there life within the body of water on Mars? Don't know. I'm crossing my fingers. I think everybody is crossing their fingers. And why is that important? Well, because then we find out we're not alone. I was saying to somebody that we have so much life on this planet. So the diversity is mind-blowing when you really think about it, but it's only here. It's only relegated to Earth. And it would be nice to know that not only is there life out there, but maybe Mars, we say it was habitable, which means it was good for life. It was ripe for life, but we don't know if that life sprung up. And if we find some organisms there, maybe that tells us a little bit more about the past and habitability and life. Pedro asks, what if we're looking for the wrong type of life forms, i.e. organisms that resemble life as we know it? Isn't our understanding of life far too limited? Yes, we only have one planet to go by, Earth, and that's it. But like I said, those extremophiles are really teaching us a lot about looking for life elsewhere. For example, Titan, largest moon around Saturn. Titan it's very similar to Earth in the sense that they have weather system. It has a weather system, but they have methane and ethane lakes, which is like gasoline. So when we thought life couldn't exist there, now we're thinking maybe life could exist there. Maybe life as we don't know it yet is waiting to be found. How do we find it? It might happen. I have faith. David D'Souza asks, what is the temperature on Mars? It's interesting because the temperature, you might see sometimes people say, oh, I'll pick Winnipeg. I'm picking on Winnipeg, but Winnipeg was colder than whatever on Mars, is colder than Mars. It is because the temperatures fluctuate. It can get down to like sometimes minus, I think it's minus 50, of course, Celsius. Warm days can be above zero, but it's still pretty cold. And also, it doesn't have much of an atmosphere, and it doesn't have the magnetic field. So the temperature is it's one of those things where it's important, but maybe it's not important in looking for life because there are just wild things out there. So I wanted, once again, to thank viewers for joining us. It's CBC News and the National live stream where we're answering your questions live on amazing astronomical discoveries. Mostly right now, of course, is water on Mars, liquid water on Mars being detected. And I'm Nicole Mortillaro, senior science writer for CBC News. So Peter Gatto asks, if this is polar liquid water due to extreme cold, the water must not be very pure. What is keeping it from freezing? High salinity content, something else? Thank you. Well, thank you. That's exactly it. It's a brine. It's salty. There are different types of minerals in there that can keep it liquid. But it's not just that. It's something called basal melting. So the pressure of the ice actually changes the melting point of the water, and that allows it to exist in its liquid form. But you're absolutely right. There's salt in it, and there are different minerals that are keeping it from freezing. Mohammed Imran asks, what difference does it make if there is water on Mars? Yeah, right. Some people just are like, oh, so who cares? Well, a couple of reasons. As I had mentioned, it's a look at life outside Earth. I mean, lonely Earth. Here we are, the only planet in the solar system with life, and it's been a driving question since we've understood the planets out there in the solar system and the universe out there. But not only that, it teaches us about life on another planet, which in turn teaches us about life on Earth, because we know that Mars had had an ocean, again, not very deep, but it was a watery world. So we want to better understand how planets form, and it teaches us about us as well, right? And we want to always learn. We're humans, that's what we do. We always go out and we're always trying to learn more and better understand ourselves. Bill Howes asks, how would NASA contain the source if Mars has compromised gravity? Okay. So I think the question is because, yeah, the gravity on Mars is different than on Earth, but it still has gravity. So we can walk around, the water can stay, but so long as something is spinning, it has gravity, whether or not it's light or not. I don't know if you might remember Rosetta, and that was going around an asteroid that I'm not going to say because it's a very long name, Churyumov-Gerasimenko. There, I tried anyway. And the lander that landed bounced because the gravity wasn't. It's very light, and the anchors that were supposed to anchor it down didn't fire. But still, it has gravity, and the lander did make it there more or less, and it was kept there, even though that gravity is very, very weak on this asteroid. So it is possible, everything, like I said, that rotates, so water will still stay put on Mars. Mick asks, do you think the rover will get buried during the months-long dust storm? Yeah, so there's been a dust storm on Mars since June, and it's a global dust storm. It is incredible, and it's engulfed the entire planet. So we have rovers there, in particular Curiosity and opportunity. Curiosity is nuclear powered, so it doesn't matter the dust storm. But but on the other hand, the Opportunity rover is solar panels. So if the dust covers it, it doesn't get the sun. So right now it's shut down. It's sleeping. NASA scientists are hoping to awaken it. And I mean, but it's been amazing. It's been 14 years. It's been on a mission on Mars for 14 years, and it was only supposed to last about 90 Mars days. So, you know, it's sleeping, it's taking a nap, and it's hopefully will wake up. But there is a possibility it could compromise Opportunity. So Tammy Trong asks, has that water always been there, and we just happen to be able to detect it, or is it newly formed? Well, that's the question. We don't know, because we know that Mars was once watery, but we don't know where that water went. So there is the possibility that it was trapped. There is, or contained, but there is also the possibility that it's new and it's there from being, from that basal melting that I mentioned about the ice compressing and changing the melting point of water. So we don't know. So that is all from me, and I want to thank you all for joining us here at CBC News and the national live stream to answer your questions about astronomy and space and the amazing Mars discovery of liquid water detected on Mars, or beneath the ice cap of Mars. So thank you very much. I'm Nicole Mortillaro, Senior Science Writer.